Now broadcasting the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show, positioning your business with strategies for an extraordinary future. Dr. Nilda features expert guests from diverse backgrounds to bring you their stories and strategies that have helped them reach their success. The diversity in industries gives you that panoramic view from an array of industries. They are innovators, thought leaders, trendsetters, and strategists. Here, Dr. Nilda reveals strategies that will position you to be on the cutting edge and be able to do what you love with the people you like, making the profits you want to live the lifestyle that you have dreamed of. And now, here's your host, Dr. Nilda Perez.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show. And today I have with me my co-host, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Okay. And I have a special guest whose name is Sergio Marrero, considers himself a serial entrepreneur. He's a facilitator and he's a researcher. He graduated from the Harvard Business School and the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He has worked in strategy and innovation firms such as PepsiCo, Deloitte Consulting, Doblin, and Teach America. He leverages his background in business, technology, and design thinking to help companies aim at shaping the future of industries by identifying market opportunities and launching new ventures. He works with company founders globally, assisting them to create the future by accelerating innovation and launching disruptive ventures for a better world. What a resume. So welcome, Sergio. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you, Nilda, for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So I'm very excited about this Bitcoin subject. That is what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay.
And I'm just going to jump in because I have so many questions and I want to make sure that we use time efficiently. So I want to start with my first question, which is, what specifically is going on with this blockchain Bitcoin space?
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll start from what is blockchain and what is Bitcoin. So blockchain or decentralized ledger technology refers to applications. So just like you have Word is an application, applications that use a decentralized database. And what that means is, imagine there's a person that has an Excel spreadsheet, right, and writes down something that happens, and then there are a group of people in the applications. They're usually called nodes, that when something happens, it's replicated across each of these nodes. So everybody has a duplicate. And the reason the decentralized ledger is powerful is because if you get rid of one ledger or one node, it still exists, right? It's a network and there's no centralized authority. So the reason it's all the craze now, I would say, is really because people are using it to make money. And I can go into how they're doing that. But before I do that, to talk about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a specific application that uses a decentralized ledger. Everybody knows it as the primary cryptocurrency. It's not really a currency. They've been calling it a crypto asset. And the reason people have been using it as a form of money or something to transfer, they've been, give their local currency to get Bitcoin and then actually pay for things across, across countries, is because you don't need to go through a central authority like a bank. And if it takes days to go through that process, this is something that can take a couple hours to actually execute a transaction on a global level. So people are excited because this no longer depends on the government. It's not, there is no central authority that can be hacked. You would have to hack all those computers at once, so it's really secure. And people are excited because it moves from these big businesses and governments, having control over these fiat currencies to now a decentralized system where a network controls that. And it's this notion of the power shifting to the people or to the masses. And that's those are elements of why people are excited about Bitcoin and blockchain.
Okay, so would you say this is more like a prepaid barter system type, digitized barter system? Because you're saying it's not necessarily currency, Would you say like you're prepaying?
Well, I would still say the reason I say it's not technically currency is because currency is backed by a government. This is not backed by any government. This is a decentralized system. It is. If we think about if you are in a loyalty program, right, and you're getting points. Let's say you fly for an airline, or you go to a hotel, or you go to your local vendor, and they're giving you points every time you spend money. That's what this is. This is a digital point system. The difference is, in that case, there's usually a central authority, right? That company governs the points and can give out more points. The reason this is a big shift is because this application is set up and nobody can just issue more points. There are rules in this system, and there are a scarce number of Bitcoins available. And what that does is it creates scarcity. So that way, let's say you pay $100 for some Bitcoin, that somebody just can't create more out of thin air and devalue your Bitcoin, which we don't realize because we trust in these governments for the most part. That's exactly what governments do. When they need more money, they print more money, which actually devalues all the currency that we have. And that takes place on a cycle over long periods of time, but we just trust that they're acting in the best interest of the whole. So this is a different type of asset that it's digital, it's scarce. And I will also say, like, Bitcoin is not the only type of digital asset. There are there are over 1,300 coins, cryptocurrencies at this point. And I would bucket them into three different types. One is the Bitcoin type technology that it's public, it's open, and different people can participate in it. Then there are tokens, which are like airline miles for a specific company or project that they issue. The thing is that token usually can only be used for that application or that team that's using it. And then the third is companies are setting up these blockchain systems so that they can use them internally. So they're not public, they're actually private. So those are the three different categories. The major categories. There are others if you want to get more technical, but those are the three major categories for blockchain and technology and decentralized ledger technology that's being deployed.
Actually, I want to take some steps back. I don't want to go forward. I want to take some steps back.
All right.
Okay. You said, much like the miles, and I understand the miles. I understand you said that if you buy $100, they can't make more. But there are people that are making money. And when you have miles, no, because here's the thing.
Yeah.
You have miles, and I know this because of my credit card. So there's the miles on the credit card. I also have points with hotels, and those don't go beyond that. Like, that doesn't give me more money. Like, I won't get more. But I hear with blockchain or with the Bitcoins, people are actually making more. So they put in 100, and they may put $100 in, and they're making like $1,000 per or. So explain that.
Yeah. So what's happening now is because Bitcoin and some of these cryptocurrencies are scarce, meaning that there will be, that the number being mined or created is capped. And the more people that want it, that's what's driving the price up. So that's exactly what's happening now is everybody that starts to read about it and gets pulled into the research realizes that this can be a substitution to a global universal currency, if you will. And when that potential exists, and there's a limited number of them, people right now are using it as an investment vehicle. They're saying, oh, wait, if this is going to be used for banks to transfer between each other and people to travel around the world and pay for things, if this is going to be that universal, conduit or universal currency, I'm going to buy some now because later everybody else is going to want some. So that's what's happening. That's the reason the value is going up.
So, and I've read about this for many years, many years, that one world currency. Do you think that blockchain is kind of closing that gap and it's making that happen? Is that, do you think this is on the onset of that?
I do. I absolutely, I think, if I take a step back,
sounds more like it.
We are in if you follow, there's something called the Gardner, technology hype cycle. And we are in a hype cycle right now, meaning that everybody's excited about this technology. It has the potential to be that, but it's just not there yet. By technically, to give an example, very difficult to hack, but with the rise of, let's say, quantum computing in a couple of years, there may be elements where, smaller networks or less sophisticated currencies without security may be hacked, which would render them probably, null and void, that risk is there. Right. Also, okay.
But with this, right now, I know that less and less, but right now, the US dollar has a lot of value. And I know when I've traveled overseas, that's one of the things that having that US dollar is really, it's rendered me a lot more for my money. But by making it uniform and making it a one world, will that kind of flatten that?
So fiat currencies such as the US dollar aren't going away. Governments will have their currency because they could control the economy inside their countries. But when you talk about the US dollar and several other, you talk about the euro, talk about the yen, some of these end up being default currencies that when people are trying to transact globally, they'll take some of their money and they'll put it into that currency. That gives that country an unfair power and leverage over everyone else, right? Yes, because it's more stable, but also they're able to control, have more global influence. And what this is doing, exactly what you're saying, is this is going to erode some of that over time. The real question is Bitcoin the universal currency? Is it going to be that? We don't know. There are, like I said before, there are over 1,300 currencies. There are different teams working on different technologies and trying to win, and we don't know. And that's why I say it's early in the process. We just have to see how these teams advance, and they have to overcome things such as speed. That's the number one thing. Right now, Bitcoin can only transact at 7 transactions per second. You look at a Visa or MasterCard, there are thousands of transactions. It's just orders of magnitude off. But like I said, like any early technology, it starts out and they're experimenting. And do I have faith that the thousands of developers that are working on this technology are going to figure out how to speed it up? Absolutely. Because of the promise that it holds, one, to make that universal currency and put more power in the hands of people. And then also people that can't get credit or access to the Visas, the MasterCards, and the banks, they will now be able to engage in the in this global society and this global economy. So it's going to change things quite a bit. And it's a matter of time.
Well, I think in that sense, it would be great. Now, we know that the government always wants to have their way. And I guess my question is, how much do you think, or do you see that they're going to eventually get involved in controlling some of this? Because that's a concern.
Great question. Yes,
that's a concern of mine, because we want to be able to invest in it, because it all sounds great.
Absolutely.
Okay. And yes, I think you're exactly correct that it's leading into that one world, currency. But my thing is now, how regulated? I know right now it's not regulated by the government. So will it be? Should it be?
So in terms of regulations, the reason it's very hard to regulate is because it's decentralized. But the early life of Bitcoin was in the black market. Like that's what originally gave it life. So I'm not going to skirt that issue. That's the challenge, right? When you create this decentralized system that anyone from anywhere can transact and doesn't need a central authority or permission to do so, you create a place, and also it's secure, so you don't know who is transacting. Now, let's say, they talk about laundering, drugs, human trafficking, being huge issues. But in the beginning of like Bitcoin, there was a application called Silk Road where people would go on and barter, if you will. They would buy drugs, and there would be all these things happening on that. That has been cracked down. There has been a crackdown on Silk Road, and it no longer exists. But that was the early days of it. And yes, it's a concern. Like, governments want to make sure that illicit activity isn't happening. But I would also say they have developed tools, and there are tools that they've started using to track transactions. Which is why they haven't, let's say, tried to crack down on it even further. It's hard to control, but now that they can at least track back. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you and I were transacting, right? Everybody doesn't know who I am, but on this ledger, it says, I'm number 12345, right? It says number 12345 sent a transaction to 45678, right? 45678 is you. And nobody knows our numbers, right? But everybody knows the transactions. And, even though you think, oh, wow, that's pretty, like it's private, no one knows what's going on. But the moment that
Swiss bank
can prove, like that, like
Swiss bank.
That's what I'm saying. This has been taking place for years outside of the U.S. system in territories like that. But think about the moment you can prove that I'm 12345. All my transactions. So it's actually there's a dichotomy here, right? Yes, it enables complete privacy, but if you can prove that someone is tied to that transaction or that like wallet, all of a sudden there's complete openness. So it's even though it's radically secure, it's also radically transparent. And I think that's what the other types of currencies are trying to address. They're trying to make sure that they're secure, that we can account for money laundering and these edge cases. But that's like anything else, like the money laundering and human trafficking and these other illicit activities. They've been using the U.S. dollar and physical money for years. We're just worried that we just want to make sure that the digital system doesn't account for that. But initially, it hasn't. And I think with everything new you create, you can't address everything at the onset.
And that's why they have lawyers who are getting involved and putting out. I guess they're making sure you fit the bill.
Yeah, so I would actually say the lawyers are getting involved because there's a lot of money to be made, and
everybody's going to make money.
Everybody's getting involved because there's money to be made. So be more. So one thing that's happening specifically on the there's cryptocurrencies, and we've talked about this universal technology. The other area is ICOs, or initial coin offerings, and that's when a venture launches a token. Right. And it is just like what I said, going back to the airline miles. It is like an airline that doesn't exist issuing miles and saying like, these are going to be valuable in the future. And the reason that's a little concerning is because you're depending on that one airline. You cannot spend those miles anywhere else, only with that.
You can't.
So I would say tokens are a higher risk, but what's happening is it's making it really easy for small startup teams to raise money. And there are a number of legal considerations, and that is why lawyers are getting involved. One of the major considerations is when you raise money via a token, then that may make you, if you, let me rewind. If you're raising money via a token, it could be considered a security. And if it's considered a security, you have to file and be as transparent as a public company. And that's where there's a lot of, new regulation that needs to be developed in this space right now. And that's why the lawyers are in there, because they want to be a part of shaping the space and make sure that it doesn't stifle innovation, but at the same time, it addresses the considerations of regulatory bodies.
Got it. Now, let me ask you this, since you've explained this a little bit more, and I'm sure since this is all the rage, how do people get started in this?
Yeah. So what I would say is just to jump in. One of the first places that they can check out is Coinbase. There's another website called coinmarketcap.com and CoinDesk. Those are three of the most common sources. I will say also be aware a lot of this is biased, very biased, because these companies have a vested interest in these technologies doing well. Mm-hmm. Also on our website, rebelmethod.com, like we've covered an extensive number of events with leaders in the cryptocurrency space. So you can, hear what they have to say. And, those I would say are the major areas to check out as you're trying to get informed. If you're going to jump in, I would, what I tell everybody, they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure yet. I said, look, if you're going to spend, $50 on a nice dinner or XYZ, maybe you don't spend it on that dinner and you put it into, Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency and experiment and treat it as a learning experience. Say, I'm spending this money to learn about this field, to understand how it works, how I can transfer funds, how I can move it around. Because in the future, there will be some sort of digital currency. Will it be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, like one of the major ones that are happening now? We're not sure, but there will be one. So the question is, if you're interested in staying on the edge of the market and potentially profiting from it, I would recommend, but don't put anything that you're not willing to lose. This is, to disclaimer, this is not investment advice. This is what I think of when I'm thinking about this space.
So what sites were those again? I'm sorry, Nilda. Yeah. I just want him to repeat those. The Coinbase it was.
Yeah. So you can listen to experts on our website, rebelmethod.com. So that's one. I would check out one of the premier exchanges that in the U.S. and most respected is Coinbase. For information for the latest information is CoinDesk and coinmarketcap.com. But also keep in mind, like I said, CoinDesk, CoinMarketCap, the news that you read on these other sites, they're extremely biased, and it's still a nascent space, meaning there's a lot of independents that are offering information and telling people, buy this token, it's the next thing. And it's just immature right now. It's because it's a new market. Not everyone understands how to measure or assess projects when they're putting in money. If you are, and that's why I say, I think cryptocurrencies, this is how I think about it. Cryptocurrencies are something that I think makes a lot of sense to me. There will be cryptocurrencies. I think the tokens, everybody's excited because they are appreciating in value really fast, but I think they're just much higher risk. It's the same as investing in a startup. You have single-digit percentages of probability you'll get any of that money back. I've kind of steered away from tokens, even though there's a lot of money rushing into that space
right now. You mean right now? That's all the rage at the moment.
All of this is a very hot space because it's appreciated in value so fast.
But coins more so than anything else.
That this gets into, like I said, like this gets in, what, let me pause. I just want to make sure that, what I'm saying is not like taken as like investment advice, because I am not like an investment, professional. That's more of like a legal thing. But what I would say is when you're investing in cryptocurrencies or tokens, just do the same research you would do as if you were investing in a startup. Right? It is no different. Buying one of these digital tokens is no different than going on the street, to a startup that and giving them money. It's the same. It's just now it's easier, and that's the reason that a lot of people are doing it, is because now it's a few clicks, and now they you've given them a few dollars with the hope that that's going to be worth more in the future. But it's no different than giving money to any startup. I mean, granted, you can argue that, okay, I may be able to sell these tokens easier than before, right? But it's still very risky. That's what I mean by the same.
Okay. You're saying also that people can start with as little as $50,
or they could start with $5, $10. They can.
So unlike trading, because when you're trading, one of the things that they suggest is that you put at least $5,000. Like that should be the baseline. You should start with about 5,000. With a blockchain, you can put as little as $25, $50, anything that you're willing to give up. So you're saying giving up maybe a meal a month, and putting that money into it. If you do that consistently, there's a potential that money will grow.
There is, but at the same time, like that's why I say I would think of it like a learning experience, because
potential. That's why I said potential. Yeah. Not necessarily this is going to happen. It's not a sure thing, but there's a potential that will grow. But if it doesn't, you just lost $50, missed a meal.
Yeah, and I think
most people waste money on what is it? Those lotto tickets. So if they want to get the lotto possibly a little quicker, maybe this is something that they can, put $5 in the lotto, which I don't agree with, but but they can do the same here.
There's I mean, don't put anything you're not willing to lose. I think that's one. And then I think two, also because you'll get to see how it's being used. Example, like I have Bitcoin, and I have it on accessible via my mobile device. And then when people, when institutions here start taking that as payment, I'll start using it, right? And that's and that will happen. And it's already occurring on some of the episodes that we've done. We've interviewed people. I interviewed people from Nigeria, from Venezuela, where where it is hard to move money from US dollars to their local currency. And they use Bitcoin as a matter of necessity, right? Especially in Venezuela, where $100 at the beginning of the year is now worth about $4 or $5. People complain in the US about Bitcoin being very variable and fluctuating in value. That is much more stable than even their currency, which it's something that we take for granted here in the US, and around the world, people are getting extremely excited by this as a substitute to local currencies.
Here's another quick question. So if I'm doing business with somebody in Venezuela, Peru, I can actually buy $100, and I owe them $100 for their service or their product. I put $100 into Bitcoin, and they can cash it in for $100. You would buy, Bitcoin or whichever currency that or digital currency you want to use, right?
And then you would ask them they give you an address, which is that address that I talked about. That it's called their key, and then you send it there, and they would get it, and that's it. And then now they have it. It's not.
And they're getting $100. And it's not.
They're getting the equivalent in Bitcoin, which it can change in value once you transfer it into Bitcoin. But they're getting that number. So every Bitcoin, this gets a little technical, has one can be broken down into 1 million Satoshis, it's called. So, if one Bitcoin right now, is more than, I'll just say more than $100. So you'll get whatever fraction of that. And so you'll have those and you'll send it and they'll get that.
Okay. Fantastic. Because I'm always interested in the future, I would like to know, and I know because you study this well, where do you see the impact of blockchain in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most immediate thing companies are using it for is to make themselves more efficient. Because it's a decentralized ledger system, it makes it very easy to transact across information internally. So they're starting to do that. So operational efficiency is one. An example of a startup doing that, Storage and Filecoin, are connecting people with empty space in their computers and people that want to upload files, and enabling them to collect money in the middle. So that's an example of that. So operational efficiency. The other one is the one I mentioned before, which will take time, which is the whole form of, currency or money, some universal currency. The third area is, they say, tokenization of physical assets. And what that means is, imagine you have a piece of property, right? And we can't afford to buy that property, but there's a custodian that says, you know what, this property, I'm going to break it into 100 pieces, right? And for every one, and I'm going to make 100 coins. And for every one person that buys, the Nilda coin, they can get a piece of that house, or they can buy 5, like it's up to them. And they've linked a physical asset to that. That's going to start to happen. You're going to be able to invest in very micro pieces because this makes it more efficient. And then the fourth is fundraising for new projects. It is just so much easier for people to invest in new ventures, new startup projects. Yes, a lot of regulation needs to be put in place so the market can be more mature, but the speed enables new startup projects to get off the ground faster. And yes, like in all these areas, a lot needs to be done, but those are the areas that I think, those 4 areas are what holds the most promise.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. This information, I tell you, I've been looking into this. I've been reading into this. My nephew keeps sending me information. He's like, read this, read that. He's a millennial, and he's definitely interested in this. So I'm doing this. This was for him. This was for you, Andrew.
Great.
So I'm really excited about it because I know this is something that he's been fascinated with, and as a result, I've been reading up a lot about it. So I want to thank you so much, Sergio, for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Of course, I want to have you back because you have a wealth of information, and not just in blockchain, but in other areas that I want to be able to pick your brain on. So I want to thank you for that. So this ends this segment of the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Rachel, for co-hosting, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Foresight Strategy Show. You can hear host Dr. Nilda, co-host Rachel with featured guests every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live or anytime on demand. Visit www.drnildaperez.com/show. For more information, sign up to our Foresight Strategies Insider newsletter, a $10 value for free at www.drnildaperez.com/newsletter.